Hey there, welcome back to the Millennial Book Junkie. My name is Monique, and usually I talk about reading horror and thriller books on this channel, but today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit how quitting drinking got me back into reading. Reading is such a big part of my life, and it has been for many, many years. And so that's why I kind of wanted to open up and talk about why I had stopped reading for many years, how I came back to it, and how quitting drinking really influenced that comeback. Because if I had not had that comeback, I probably wouldn't have started this channel to begin with. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my backstory there. I do get some questions here often on how to get back into reading, and this was just what worked for me. So I stopped drinking 3.5 years ago. I had my last drink in January of 2023, and it really has impacted my life in a very big way. But one of the biggest ways is it really got me back into reading. But the thing is, like, I have always been a reader. Like, I feel like I came out of the womb just reading. I can't remember a time when I wasn't devouring like Goosebumps. I remember, going to my cousin's house, she would watch us and just devouring Fear Street books. And then as I got older, I started reading VC Andrews and then Dean Koontz and then Stephen King, or trying to. He was a little hard for me as a kid, but I just never remember being without a book as a kid. And even as a teen, I mean, this followed me all the way through high school. I just reading and writing were just like my favorite ways to just escape, but also they were creative outlets for me. But as I got older, reading, of course, started to take a back seat because I graduated college. It was time to focus on finding a job, moving out of my parents' house, and I did both of those things. And then when I got out in the real world, I realized I hated working. I hated having a 9 to 5. And I really just wanted to have my own business or some kind of thing that would allow me to make money without having to go into work every single day. And so in my mid 20s, all the way up to like my mid 30s, I would say, I really focused on making money on my own. I had a full time job, but I hated it. So I was constantly trying different side hustles. One of them was proofreading, and I have a whole video on that, which I'll link above, on how I started this freelance proofreading business. And it's what I do today full time. But I really was all over the place, trying to figure out a way to not work, basically. And I ended up doing some things that just really didn't align with me. And it wasn't like they were bad things, but they were just different industries that I didn't have any business being in because I didn't have any passion for them. But if you would ask me during that time, hey, Monique, like, what are you reading lately? I would have been like, oh, I'm reading like the latest hot nonfiction business book, or I'm listening to a podcast on how to grow your business. Fiction was just the furthest thing from my mind. Even though I enjoyed it, I didn't think that I had the luxury of sitting down to read when in all my free time I was just trying to build my own business. And in the background of all of this, I was a gray area drinker. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, that basically just means you are someone who doesn't fit the criteria necessarily for alcohol use disorder, but someone who really feels that alcohol is impacting their lives in kind of a negative way. I want to say probably in my early to mid 30s is when I really started to question why I drank at all. I would usually drink socially, sometimes at home, like, if it was Friday night or even Sunday night, I'd have a glass of wine. But every time I drank, I always wondered, like, should I be drinking? And I really judged myself for it. And I found that over time, as enjoyable as it was to go out and have a drink with friends, as you get older, you just can't do it anymore. Like, I could go out and have 2 drinks at a bar with like colleagues after work and then be feeling it for like 4 days afterward. So every time I drank, no matter how little it was, I would always be paying the consequence. And so every time I did drink, I was like, why am I doing this if I feel so crappy afterward? And on top of that, like when I was out drinking socially, I felt like it was a good thing. I felt like it was totally fine and acceptable. And I always kind of had these rules of like, okay, if everyone else is getting a second drink, I'll get a second drink. Or if everyone else is drinking, I'll drink. And I just created all these rules for myself around drinking. And I felt like a failure if I didn't stick to them. And also, not to mention, alcohol is so addictive. So, like, I would beat myself up if, like, I wanted another glass of wine after the first one. And overall, drinking just went from like this fun and enjoyable thing that I could do in my 20s to like this very confusing thing where I had this mental like gymnastics going on every time I decided to have a drink. So this all sort of came to a head one night in January of 2023. It was like a Tuesday night, and my girlfriend and I, we decided we were going to go out to Hollywood. And this was a girlfriend that I didn't see very often. So we went out, we had a really good time, a little too much of a good time. And I ended up getting really sick the next day. And at the time, I was a freelance proofreader. And when you're sick as a freelance proofreader and you can't work, that means you don't get paid. So I was really shirking my responsibility as a proofreader, as a freelance proofreader to my clients. I was letting them down because I was sick, because I chose to have like a big drinking night the night before with my friend. And so that day, I kind of realized like, I think I need to make a change. And it wasn't really like a rock bottom moment because I never really considered myself someone to like drink daily or really have a problem with alcohol, but I did enjoy it and I did question it. So I felt like I think I should kind of explore, stopping for a while and seeing where that gets me. And then I also was like, I don't know how long I'm going to stop for, but I know that I need to stop and I'm going to kind of try this out. And when I did, you would think that everything just got all rosy afterward. It really didn't. Like the first 2 weeks that I gave up alcohol were really tough. I mean, I was crying all the time. I just felt depressed. I felt deprived. I was still going out and doing social events with my friends, which probably wasn't helpful. And I just kind of felt like I was missing out. And the hardest part about this whole like 2 week period where I wasn't drinking, and like that was like the longest I had gone in a long time. And the hardest part was that I didn't really have anyone to talk about this with because the majority of the people in my life were still drinking. Not like every day, but they were still drinking. So they didn't really understand what it was that I was going through and like this turmoil that I was going through. So for a while, I was like trying to figure out ways to make myself feel better. And I thought I might feel better by downloading some sort of like daily tracker app where I could track the days that I wasn't drinking. And so when I went in the App Store to find something, I actually stumbled upon this app called Reframe. And their goal was to help people limit their drinking, not necessarily to help you like quit drinking, but just to help you limit. And at first I was skeptical because I was like, well, I want to quit drinking. So I don't know if I want to limit it. I kind of want to quit it. But I signed up for the app anyway, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself because this app is basically a community of people who want to be healthier in that regard. There are some people who want to quit drinking, there are some people who just want to cut back. And when I signed up for that app, which was free, I got in there and there was an area like a forum that you could talk to people about how you were feeling on certain days. And I really utilized that because I could read what other people were going through. And then I could also share my experiences. And I felt comfortable sharing my experiences because it was all anonymous. You don't have to put your picture, your real name, or anything like that. I just really was craving some kind of connection. And probably the biggest thing, even bigger than the forum for me on this app, I upgraded to like the paid monthly version just to check it out. But you could go to coaching sessions and you don't have to turn on your camera. It was like group coaching, and there's like over 100 sometimes people in there. And you don't have, your video, and you don't have your audio. You just have people talking about their experiences trying to give up alcohol. And yes, that makes some people uncomfortable, but for me, it really helped because I just wanted to learn more about people who were doing the same thing that I was. And so multiple times a day, I would attend these like group coaching sessions, and it always helped me to hear someone talk about their experiences. And I always left those coaching sessions feeling so good. Now, how does this relate to reading and all of that? So let me bring this all back. So when I was on Reframe, just soaking up these coaching sessions and learning about what alcohol does to the body and all that stuff, I was recommended books. Like in the resources section and like on these coaching calls, people were in the chat box just throwing out like great books to read. These type of books are where you're trying to recover from something, are called quit lit, I've learned. So if you look at my very first booktube video actually ever, I talked about how quit lit was like one of my favorite types of category of books to read, because at the time I was reading a lot of quit lit. So basically all this time on Reframe, I got really into like book recommendations because people were throwing around books to help, if you were cutting back on alcohol. So I was like, this is great. And so I ordered a bunch on Amazon and I was just reading. And oh my God, when those books came in the mail, it just reignited in me just that love and passion that I've always had for reading. And I was like, wow, like, why don't I read more? Like, what's the matter with me? And as soon as I finished reading my first quit lit book, which was The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober by Catherine Gray, I was like, we are back, baby. I was like, I just finished a book. Like, look at me. I was like, this might be like my second book that I finished this year, but like, I am back. And I just got that love and passion for reading back after I finished that book. And I had finished it in like 3 days. And I was like, oh my God, like it just really awakened my passion for reading that had just been dormant for like 10 years. Now, during that like 10 years when I was working and trying to make money as a side hustle with all this stuff going on, it wasn't like I didn't read, but I probably read one fiction book a year. I think I read like Ruth Ware, and maybe there was this other book called The Birthday Girl. I don't remember the author, but like it was like very rare that I would be reading fiction at that time. So to come back, even with nonfiction that wasn't about like building a business, was just like liberating. It just kind of like opened me up. And I was like, oh my God, I'm back. Because right after that, I finished another book called Girl Walks Out of a Bar by Lisa Smith. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I was unstoppable. I was like, I just finished another one, give me another one, give me another one. And literally, I just spent like all my time that like when I wasn't working, I spent all my time reading quit lit, because basically when you stop drinking, it's like all you can think about. So like all I could think about was ways to like change my mindset. And so I feel like reading these books was like the only like balm, like healing balm to my mental angst. And especially if you're not going out all the time, like you have all this time, right? And so I was just like consuming these books. And so at this point, I was like, this was probably a month or 2 months into me not drinking. And I was kind of feeling a lot better about not drinking. I mean, it wasn't great still, but it was like not as bad as those first 2 weeks. And I felt a little bit more equipped to deal with things, having joined these Reframe coaching calls and having read these books. And all of a sudden, it was kind of like the mental fog started to clear for me. I realized that running a freelance proofreading business that was barely paying the bills wasn't necessarily the right path for me, and full-time work actually afforded a lot of great benefits that I would not otherwise be getting. And so that's when I got my full-time proofreading job with Nordstrom Rack, and I have that in the other video too, which I'll link again. Basically, though, like it was around this time when I was just, things just started to kind of clear up for me. And like I kind of woke up from a dream and I was like, what have I been doing with my life? Why am I doing things that I don't enjoy? Like, why can't I just get a regular job and in my free time just like enjoy reading and enjoy life? Why am I working so hard and burning myself out? And so that's really the story of kind of how I got back into reading. It really was just me consuming quit lit books and then realizing, hey, I'm really immersing myself into like this non-alcoholic culture. Like, I think I can take a break and get back to like the fun stuff. And the first thing I did when I decided to, get back into actual like thriller and horror reading was I went to YouTube and I typed in thriller recommendations. And the first video that popped up was a video by Haley Hughes. And she's a booktuber that I've been watching ever since then, ever since 2024, I guess 2023. And I binge watched like all of her videos. I was like, oh my gosh, all these great thriller recommendations, like give them to me. And I was just like she is doing like what I love to do. Like she was getting excited about new books and I could feel it. And I was like, that's me. That's literally me. Like that's how I feel about books. And I started to like get very, very excited about this new lifestyle for me, which was basically returning to what I had always done as a kid. And it was actually really funny, or not so funny, but recently I was talking about how much I love reading to my husband, and he was like, "Yeah, but you didn't always love reading." And that kind of broke my heart because we've been together like 15 years, and as long as he's known me, like I've only been back into reading for like 2 or 3 years. So it really kind of hurt to hear him say that because I really wasted a lot of time doing things that I did not enjoy. And I had to tell him, oh my gosh, honey, like I've always been a reader. You don't even know. So, all that being said, if you are kind of in a similar position to me and you are kind of looking for some books or resources to help you out, if you're curious about giving up drinking for a little bit, I am going to share with you in the description box the books that I read that I really enjoyed. Some of them I already mentioned. Ones that I haven't mentioned, though, are How to Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. That one really focuses on the female perspective of drinking. And I really love the research that she has in that one. It really opened my eyes to what it means to be a woman and kind of drinking in public around men, and just I really liked that one. And if you are hardcore on like feminism and just like good for her type of stuff, I think you would really like that one. I also really liked The Biology of Desire by Mark Lewis. This one was quite an eye opener. It really sees addiction like not as a disease, and I really love that. I think people put a lot of blame on themselves when they drink, and I feel like the big like aha moment is that alcohol is addictive. It changes the way you think, it changes your brain patterns. So how is that our fault? You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed that book. That one was really a big eye opener for me. And aside from listening to Reframe, I will link the app down below. I'm not an affiliate at all or anything. I used it and it helped me. And they have a free and a paid version, and I really enjoyed that app. But another podcast that I really like is This Naked Mind. That one is by Annie Grace, and her podcast was like one of the best things in the world when I just needed something to listen to. She also has a book, multiple books on living alcohol free. I have not read them, but I just really enjoyed her podcast. And I know her book, This Naked Mind, is really, really successful and a lot of people like it. There is another book, William Porter's Alcohol Explained. That one was also an eye opener for me. It really talks about how alcohol works in the body. So, all of these books and resources were super helpful to me when I decided to stop drinking. And I think you'll find that a lot of people nowadays aren't drinking as much. It's kind of like I jumped on the train as it was already going, which I think is great because there's a lot of alcohol free options out there. I will say that one of my favorite alcohol free like mocktails is by DeSoy. They have a jalapeno margarita that's like a mocktail and it has adaptogens in it. This is like one of my favorites because you can really feel yourself relaxing with these, and it tastes just like a margarita and it has zero alcohol in it. So that's like one of my favorite drinks that I'm enjoying right now. But there are so many also other great alcohol free options out there if you're curious. And just to kind of close out this video, which is kind of a little more of a personal video, but I will say that my life has gotten exponentially better when I stopped drinking. And I really have come back to things that I absolutely enjoy and things that I enjoyed as a kid. And I can't promise that I'm never going to have a drink again, but I also don't see that in my foreseeable future. So I'm kind of leaving it open right now just to kind of see where life takes me. But after 3.5 years, I definitely, it's not on my list. And I don't also want to make it sound like it's the best thing in the world. Life is still hard, even when you stop drinking. And it's something more like you have to sort of adapt to it without leaning on alcohol. And that is very, very hard. But I will say that it really is great to be very clear headed, alert, and aware at all times of your life. And life is still enjoyable without it. So, thank you so much for watching and taking the time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments if you want resources or anything like that. I'm also at Millennial Book Junkie on Instagram. If you want to send me a direct message, I'm happy to help with anything that or any questions that you have. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like things that are bookish, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.